And a very fine Thursday evening to you all. Greetings. Lovely to see you again, Niraj. Thank you for coming back.
Evening, Nick.
Good. Lovely to catch everybody. Hello, Ram.
Hi, Nick. Hi, everyone.
Evening, everybody.
No, don't you dare.
I'm not.
Hello, Roy.
I'm dealing with a daughter who's eating crisps out of a very noisy bag. But she's just go off to do her hockey, hopefully.
Yes. So yeah, she's obviously feeling a little puckish. Peckish and puckish.
Yeah, she was very interested in where the foyer was because it had snacks and drinks.
So is it field hockey or ice hockey, right?
No, not quite that bad. No, it's just ordinary hockey.
Okay.
But is it played indoors? I mean, obviously.
No, she's outdoors.
Oh,
their pitch is at the Chichester High School.
Oh yeah, fantastic. Well, a very, very good evening to people. Oh, and we're getting lovely to see Rachel. Rachel joined us very early on the Kaizen process. She's just coming in now. I hope everybody's had a fabulous week. For those of you who weren't able to make it last week, John Mills was here, and I think I reflect the body of the Kirk's opinion that he didn't actually tell us much that we didn't already know. Maybe I should have pushed him on solutions more than I did, but all he seemed to offer was this exchange rate manipulation, and I think you and Lloyd Baker rather took him down on that. So that was quite interesting. Yeah, Ewan can't join us again. I'd like to have had a wrap up from his thoughts as well, but he's going to be joining us again in the new year. The guys from University of Cambridge can't make it, so it was all very short notice, and they're absolutely rammed, and they are actually going to be doing quite a big push on manufacturing lessons learned for SME manufacturers during the COVID crisis. They've actually been monitoring it right the way back from May. I remember seeing an early piece by Tim Minchell, who's the head of the engineering division at Institute for Manufacturing at Cambridge University. So they've been monitoring this very carefully. And that article that I sent you a link to, they're going to be doing much more about it after Christmas. So it's worth a look if you are intrigued by the, about what the lessons that can be learned from the way manufacturers responded to the crisis. So absent that, I suggested we all maybe fill in the gaps that I felt, John Mills left in his presentation to us last week, and maybe come up with our own ideas about what industrial strategy our wish list would look like. For those of you again who came in just a little bit late, tomorrow, fingers crossed, I'm going to be interviewing Vince Cable, who although he's part of the John Mills Institute, he's actually written a pamphlet on industrial strategy for all, and he's giving a presentation about it right now with Peter Mandelson on a different call, and I'll send a link to everybody so that you can catch up with that if you so desire tomorrow. They are doing pretty much the same sort of thing we are, except I think they're going on Facebook Live. But yeah, it's that could be quite interesting. And as I say, apparently Vince Cable's happy to be interviewed, but I wrote to him and I haven't heard back yet. So, but I'll keep you posted on that. Right. Are we all ready for Christmas? Are you going to have Christmas in any way, shape, or form? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'm in a very peculiar position because my daughter, who lives in California, is due to fly over tonight, but the U.S. government took her children's passports on an entirely related issue 4 months ago and haven't returned them. And they've got all their visas in them, so I don't know if she's coming or not. But it's very strange. There's part of me that hopes that she'll come after Christmas. But I mean, we still can't be seeing her. I mean, this bubble thing is just crazy. It's absolutely so difficult. But yeah. Anyway, who's got some New Year resolutions about what you'd like to see happen, either in terms of policy or manufacturers doing for themselves? What developments would make you happy in the new year? Who wants to put their hand up and get going on this one? Mark, good evening.
Good evening. So mine is probably blatant self-interest, but why not? I'd love to see manufacturers select one new supplier a month. I think businesses can tend to get complacent, suppliers can get complacent, and then with a year of people not seeing each other, maybe the relationships and the understandings have got a little tired. So perhaps businesses should look around for better suppliers.
Not being in that game, obviously, I'd be interested to see what other people think about that. What reaction has anybody got to that? Are you all just comfortable with your suppliers, or do you have a dynamic supply chain policy in your business?
I don't have a supply chain because I'm a consultant, but when I've worked with sort of SME size companies, I've always found supply chain a bit of a problem, in the sense that often they're not such a significant part of the supplier's business to be influential. So I've usually found them right on the, well, we'll sell you this stuff, that's the price, take it or leave it. You know, and also the other thing I've come across is that sometimes some of the requirements are often very specific, and when it comes down to it, there's not such a big choice of suppliers out there after all. Maybe if you're buying nuts and bolts, but sometimes if you're buying specialist parts, when you go look, there's not that many suppliers, even in the world, let alone in this country. So I think it has always been nice, but I've always found it really difficult when I've hit problems with suppliers, with SMEs, to be in any position of leverage.
Yeah, I don't know, and I'm not clever enough to understand this, but I think that obviously there comes a point in a company's growth when it can and should have redundancies amongst its suppliers. So if one supplier goes down, then they've got more coming in. But I don't know how big you have to be to make that happen. Rachel, it's lovely to see you. Haven't seen you for a long time. How are you?
Yes, not too bad. Sorry, Thursdays are a bit of a challenge for me, but I was keen to try and make the final one of the year to kind of show my commitment to some extent.
That's very kind of you.
Yeah, interesting topic about supplier management, actually. We're an SME, and I think resource is probably one of the biggest barriers that, as Steve mentioned, I think in terms of managing suppliers and, sort of being able to leverage the best you can. But at the same time, we build probably stronger relationships with our suppliers, especially if you're working, as you say, on quite specific products. I mean, take, for example, we use polyurethane to make our moldings. And as you say, we do try and de-risk that by running 3 different materials. But there aren't that many to choose from, and obviously the requirements that we need are quite specific. So it's more about maintaining a strong relationship rather than just switching around to find the best price really for us. Nuts and bolts, yep, fair, you could go to any commodity supplier for that. But I think it's an interesting topic because I think suppliers are demanding a lot more regulatory and documentation. So there's a lot of resource that's being demanded from those as well. So I think it's kind of deciding what value it is to your business and what risk it presents to how much time and effort you can really give to it.
Thank you. Thank you. And I hope Midas Patton are doing okay. Everything all right with you?
Yeah, everything's good. It's been a busy year for us actually. So I think we're all on the final run down to the year end, making sure we can get product out the door. But yeah, it's been a challenging but a good year from a business perspective. So yeah, onwards and upwards for 2021.
Wonderful to hear that. Okay, let's move on. Thanks for that suggestion, Mark. I'm actually making notes, and we'll try and think about these. Julian, you had your hand up. Good evening to you.
Good evening. In the whole sort of gamut from the very small SMEs, sort of small manufacturers, right up to major car plants or steel companies, my guess, my observation would be that the very large organizations can afford to tap into consulting companies and advisory companies because all the major consulting and strategic consultancies see them as, the big ones as an important source of income. But I just wonder how much. I mean, Steve, I don't know whether you fit into the category I'm just about to say, but I just wonder, and don't all hit me for saying this, how efficient small manufacturers are in terms of management competence. And I mean, there's a lot of expertise, and Rachel's just spoken about source of suppliers, and I bet there's sort of fantastic expertise in technology and keeping up to date on stuff. But I just, in the same way that I can't remember the program was, Harvey somebody or other, the guy who used to run.
Could I answer that for you, Julian?
John Harvey Jones. Yeah, John Harvey Jones, XICI.
Yeah, just I mean, it was great telly, but he used to go into companies and sort them out, and I just wonder if, in my wish list would be if there was some mechanism, and we don't want government involved, but I don't know how it's done, that there could just be a sweep through of hundreds and hundreds of companies. Maybe it's a mentoring thing. Maybe the really efficient manufacturers mentor for nothing, other companies to help them. Sorry, I'll shut up, Steve. Go on.
Well, no, it's very interesting that Steve Murphy and Ram are actually already working on something along these lines. Steve, over to you.
Yeah. My point is this. This is some old data. I don't think it's that old. It's this year, but it might be 4 or 5 months old. But even so, it's not the sort of data that radically changes. It came from the Bureau of Statistics, and they've been looking at productivity within companies, and they said what they found was that a lot of our bigger companies are pretty good on productivity. They work quite hard at it. When it came down to SMEs, there was a clear split, and that is the SMEs who engaged professional managers. So in other words, maybe it was originally a family-run business, but they've employed a professional, seasoned operations manager. They did pretty well on productivity. But the SMEs, of which there are a large number, who are family-run companies and just sort of use the family for management, their general increase in productivity was very poor. So that's like an example of the sort of analysis I'd like to see the government delivering. So that gives you an area. If you want to go and improve the management somewhere, you can only do so much by focusing on these SMEs with professional management. You have to focus on the SMEs who've kept the family as the management. And there still might be great little companies, but in productivity terms, they struggle.
It's interesting that you fixed, and I guess this is a very common thing with manufacturing, focusing on productivity. Productivity to me is a measurement in relation to a datum of the efficiency in which you can manufacture something. I mean, I presume, the number of man hours it takes to produce a car or whatever it might be. But it isn't necessarily covering all bases in terms of the efficiency and the profitability of these firms, and therefore their capability of reinvesting in innovation and other things. So productivity on its own isn't the only factor, is it?
Yeah, Stephen
I'd
Barr.
agree with you. Yeah, that's fine, Julian. I agree. It's just I still they're probably they can be, but I always look on them on productivity. In other words, it's a bit like an underlying metric. It's a bit like, the way I look on it is a bit like fitness programs for footballers and people like that. Underneath this great talent, proper companies, will have proper conditioning programs. Each player will have and that is, like, to my mind, it's a bit like the underlying structure that their talent works on. And it's a bit like, to me, like, I think productivity, the ability to work without waste, is like this underlying structure. It means that when the heat comes on, you've got these underlying skills that give your new product introduction, your investment. It's like a basis that it works from.
Okay,
So I
Stephen Barr, come on, introduce Stephen Barr at this point. He put his hand up. You're doing,
good,
Stephen?
Good.
I'm just to sort of state the rather obvious point. I mean, one of the reasons why productivity isn't the only thing to look at is because it's a classic lagging indicator. Yeah, I mean, most businesses that are successful look at forward indicators around bottom line success, customer engagement, all of those good things. So it's, I mean, with the football analogy, it's rather like the difference between dribbling skills and scoring goals. What you're interested in is scoring goals, but you've got to figure out how to get there. And my experience with SMEs in particular is the areas they really need help on are the engagement with customers, and less so about the way that they engage. They're much more capable of sorting out their productivity once they've got the customer flow and the cash flow that enables them to do it. So it's kind of chicken and egg situation in a sense. I don't know if anybody else has had that sort of experience in terms of what to encourage SMEs with to move forward.
Mike Morris, good evening. You're muted. Sorry, you're muted, Mike.
Yeah, the discussion on productivity, cash flow, customer service, these are pretty much interrelated, aren't they? There's no cookie cutter and say we get this right, everything else will be fine. They're all interrelated. Maybe just to go back a bit to the supply chain discussion, and maybe old fashioned, but one criterion that I recall very well is the one with the best supply chain wins. That no company is any better than its combined supply chain. And so, and not just replacing one or two suppliers, and not necessarily looking at replacing suppliers, but at evaluating your supply chain. Using a kind of a Boston matrix to maybe on ease of doing business and cost and whatever, but to evaluate the supply chain, look at those suppliers that you really, really work well with, look at improving relations there, migrating some suppliers into that upper quadrant of a Boston matrix, and maybe looking at the others, never going to make it, move those on, but take an overall evaluation. Supply chains are pretty much messed up at the moment. And should we be buying locally? Should we be resourcing from overseas more or whatever? Just take an overview of the entire supply chain. One with the best supply chain wins.
Yeah. Adam.
I think you've got to step back again. If you've got a family-run business, it could be that they want a lifestyle business. So they have a decision to make. We have, one of the things for me is when we talk around catapults, we have the high value management catapults. What they do is they set a gateway in saying, you've got to have a high growth, high potential to get in and they'll work with you. But there are SMEs out there that don't necessarily know they are high growth, high potential. And I've got to find a way of trying to filter these out. The lifestyle ones that are family orientated and want to stay where they are, stay where they are. But we have to try and filter the high growth, high potential ones and make them understand they are high growth, high potential. Now that's a damn sight harder. But
who does the identifying, Adam? Who does the identifying?
I don't, and that's the, and I have not got a solution around this at all. I mean, I've been in, God, 2 or 3 years ago, we had a roundtable session around how do we bring them in, how do we highlight them and bring them into that circle so we can start working with them. I think it was Steve. I think me and you were talking around. Did you make a comment on the manufacturing hour on Tuesday around doing some like analysis, wasn't it, across the board on manufacturing and where these potentials are? I can't remember whether
Yeah,
it
I'm a
was
Six
that.
I'm a Six Sigma geek, Adam. You know that I always obsessed with analysis, but it's a bit but it's a bit like it can give you some areas. Just you can't get into analysis paralysis, but whenever I hear talk of manufacturing, I can't see, like, what are the areas of growth. If we, what have we got in terms of electric vehicles? What do they want? Some sort of grommets, cabling? I don't know. So, and often there are people who've got sort of a grip on that sort of data that can identify areas for us to focus on.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I've just sat here and I've excuse me, because I've turned it to the other screen, and ILM sent me through their newsletter, and it's on around innovation, and they've done a survey around that, and they're saying small organizations, 29% currently prioritize people before profit, 47% expect to prioritize innovation in the next 5 to 10 years. And then they've got the medium organizations are saying 24% currently prioritize ensuring compliance with rules and procedures. 38% expect to prioritize innovation in 5 to 10 years, which surprised me quite a lot, really, that the innovation is 5 to 10 years they're looking at. They're not looking at it now.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Ram, you want to say something?
Yeah, hi. Thanks, Nick. Can everybody hear me? Thumbs up if you can. Perfect. Now, productivity, right? It's one of my favorite words, because when we talk productivity, all we are doing is talking about in terms of time, how many man hours, how many person hours, whatever. But what we're missing is productivity shouldn't just be measured in terms of man hours. It is what you get as an output over what are the resources you're using to spend it. And that resources includes your people's time, includes effort, it includes material, it includes logistics, it includes everything. Unless we get a complete picture of it, we're talking productivity completely wrong, especially in the manufacturing sector. Right, if you're a consultant, like one of the big four or the McKinseys of the world, time. But as producers of physical, tangible products, we cannot talk productivity just in terms of time. It has to be in terms of all the resources, including raw materials and effort and everything. Otherwise, we're just going to get productivity wrong, number one. Number two, innovation, another favorite word of mine. There is a collective misconception about what the word actually means. Now, on the one hand, you have people who think only the likes of Google and Apple or on the big boys are innovating. But on the other hand, you have people think we are just a small company. We don't innovate, but they're actually doing some pretty nifty, cool things that actually kind of align themselves with the definition of innovation, which is solving a problem and realizing a commercial benefit. So, we need to have a collective definition of what innovation means for all of us, and we need to redefine what productivity means. That's my 2 pence for tonight.
Thank you. Right. Anybody else?
Nick,
yes.
Sorry, Nick. There was. It's only very, very quick. When we talk around productivity and things like that, we talk around OEE, but there is actually 2 other elements that go into that. There's overall logistics efficiency and overall supply chain efficiency, and the 3 together create the overall mechanisms of the business. We never talk about them though, because I think I've said before, operational excellence and productivity go hand in hand with operational excellence within logistics as well. And this is where we get into, from an SME point of view, they're looking for businesses and buildings that they need to expand so they can expand into them. And they haven't got to the buildings there, so they end up buying one across the road, which has now just driven a logistical nightmare into it that affects productivity, because we've now got to pass product across the road. And it could be a busy road. I've been in a number of places like that. Last year alone, I was dealing with probably 4 or 5 different businesses that were struggling to find a unit, so they ended up building a unit over the way from them, and of course that drives an inefficiency in logistics going back and forth with material. Yeah, so there's a whole knock. You do have to look at it, and I noticed I've just seen it there because Bob's just put about what about sales efficiency as well, because there is a whole host of it in the whole company side.
Yeah,
so we don't look at it. We tend to focus on OEE, and yet there is a whole host more.
I never mentioned OEE. What I mean by productivity is everybody in the company spends a minute on something because that's what it takes to do, and that's the best time to do it. If they need to take a minute, they take a minute. If they need to take 3 days, they take 3 days. The problem with inefficiency, and I think that's true of sales efficiency. When I talk about productivity, I don't just mean the ability to turn out a nut and a bolt or something. It's the total elimination of waste within your organization, and you focus on the waste that you can eliminate at any one time. That's what I mean by productivity. Sorry, I look on it as a much broader definition than the crude 500 quid to make a car.
Julian, you set this hair running.
Just 2 things, and they're unrelated. And I hope they're sort of vaguely connected to the conversation. One is I'm on the board of and work a lot with a financially regulated company, a market maker, trading company, and for not unreasonable reasons, since 2008, investor protection and whatever, the regulatory environment is unbelievably draconian. We probably spend literally 20% of our operating expenses on complying with the government. So here's a dumb question, but is there still ISO 9000? To what extent is sort of jumping over quality standards a pain in the neck to manufacturing?
Okay.
I think it's not just jumping over the quality standards. Certainly in our industry, we see a lot more regulatory requirements as well. So the quality is just the start. Okay. Certainly in the last sort of 5 years, I would sort of say the red tape that is associated with becoming more successful actually gives you a bigger burden, really, because you're having to weigh up your time where you spend, so you'd be more successful working with better quality customers, but their demands and expectations are much higher in terms of the paper trail, the traceability, the regulatory tick boxes that you need to go through. So I think when we talk about that alongside production, it's like for any small business, it's a balance, isn't it? It's finding where the risks are and where the biggest costs are, and trying to make sure that they align. So it's not always a choice. We'd love to have a single unit and be fully laid out. We understand that's the best production system, but we can't afford to move 2 factories and 70 people and still retain profitability and all the association, DLAPs that go with that and things like that. So there's choices, isn't there? And I think you have to find the best balance for your business, really.
I remember going back a number of years. I used to be friends with somebody who was a business coach, and he told me, and this is all to do with the very long tail of SMEs, and rather goes to Adam's point about finding the ones who've got the potential. And he described to me the very, very difficult barrier that a small company has to go through in order to grow. It becomes, you get these exponential moving parts, and very often, and the small business person doesn't have all the skills necessary, even if they have got a business model that has the high quality, high potential, high growth that Adam was talking about. And I'm wondering if I can ask Stephen Barr, did MAS ever, the manufacturing advisory service that Stephen used to run before David Cameron nailed it, did Maz ever offer that kind of advice about, you know, how to get bigger, how to create growth and live with it?
It's a really interesting question, because you can ask why Maz is no longer around. One of the reasons was it was very slow to change from a core service, which was mostly about lean and new product development, all good things, and less about emerging factors, including support for business development, business growth. And it's one of the reasons why it was busy morphing into business growth services at the time the money ran out, effectively. David Cameron and others thought that European money would come in to substitute for it. So we saw that there was a need for change, to focus on business, to focus on growth, to focus on competitiveness. But it proved rather difficult to make that happen. So we're
when you say
excited
difficult,
to hear what government wants to do next.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if I would, you know, my little contribution to the sort of wish list, if you like, is to have is that government, in consultation with manufacturers, not just imposing it, but would actually recreate something like Maz that could offer the some of the services and some of the I don't know, the identification of great companies. And who knows? I mean, I have yet to see Vince Cable's pamphlet. It's 10 things for an emerging industrial strategy that he's talking about. Maybe this is one of them, to have some kind of service that companies can go to and say, well, look, you know, we want to do this, we just don't know how. And the idea, I think somebody else said about how, you know, other manufacturers can maybe act as mentors. I think it's a wonderful idea, but it's haphazard. It's, you know, what happens if you don't know anybody, and you want to get some advice? I must say that, you know, in our own very, very tiny little way, what we do every Thursday evening is designed purely to find actually wisdom and help collaboration and continuous improvement. And in a sense, that spirit needs to find find representation on a much wider scale. But
let me just pick up on that, because I think that's a really strong point. It happens just today. In fact, we've had the closeout meeting on a project we've been running for the last year or so, funded by Innovate UK. And it was to test ways of helping companies to get into using digital technologies in manufacturing. In a sense, it doesn't really matter what the subject matter was, because one of the key things we were testing is how helpful it would be to get companies acting peer-to-peer, in other words, sharing their experiences of how to make digital work for them. That could have been anything working for them. But lo and behold, getting companies, multiple companies working together in workshop environments turned out to be a brilliant thing. There are lots of challenges around it. So how do you match them up? How do you help them to overcome their sensitivities about giving away information to potential competitors? So there's a real organizational thing about getting the right companies talking to the right companies. But actually, it worked marvelously well. So we have evidence that collaboration is excellent. Collaboration is worth the extra effort of making it work, because once you do get it working, it becomes a very efficient way of upskilling, well, anybody who's interested in being upskilled.
That's brilliant. Yeah, I mean,
so the report's due out. I'll send you all a copy for Christmas if you like.
Oh my, you just made my day.
I should wait for everybody to be pretty fired up first, if I were you. But anyway.
Yeah, Ram Shankar.
Oh no, I was just going to tell Steve if he can send me a copy for Christmas as well. I'd appreciate that.
It might have a bit like the vaccine. It might have to be Easter rather than Christmas, but I'll bear that in mind. Ram. Yeah, you're welcome.
Julian, sorry, you're going to add there.
I'm just going to say a good example of cooperation exists. I don't know which organization or how under whose auspices it works. But between local authorities on procurement, I mean, I just remember a few years ago uncovering the fact that I think it was, I don't know, Hammersmith or I can't remember, had made a major investigation into firefighting equipment and had run a substantial procurement exercise and identified, you know, optimum suppliers in Scandinavia. And there was a, you know, really efficient forum in which other local authorities could speed their procurement process by the sharing of the know-how. And that is operating at the moment across a lot of local government procurement, I understand.
Interesting notes I'm just seeing about how very large car makers like Toyota and JLR, Steve and Bob are mentioning that a very large company can actually mentor smaller companies in the supply chain, some of their suppliers, and that feels good as well. I mean, anything that aims for improvement. I think what I'm sensing from what we're saying is that there's a lot of undirected or misdirected energy in the sector that if it could somehow be channeled, harnessed, directed more efficiently, then everything would improve. But as always, the big question is who's going to do that? How's it going to happen? Anybody else got any New Year resolutions, or would they like to add? Niraj, you want to add something to that last bit of the conversation?
Yeah, Nick, thank you. You know, Stephen mentioned about collaboration, and Adam and Ram also spoke about innovation. So my 2 cents on it. I am personally involved in a digital transformation startup, and what I've seen, a lot of companies or businesses, specifically smaller size, they want to go for innovation, but they don't know how to do it. So I think collaboration is the way to go. And if some businesses or some companies put their heads together and then come up with solutions to what their major problems are, I think there is a high likelihood those problems could be solved. And from a supply chain perspective, what I've seen is that a lot of customers do not expect, you know, a product or a service. They are expecting an outcome. So even from their supply chain, they want to take them on as a collaborator. My customer, you know, they don't want to call me a vendor. They want to call me a partner, and they want me to be a partner in their risk. So I say that's fine. Then I want to be a partner in your success as well. So the pricing, for instance, I'm giving to them, it's outcome-linked pricing. And I am assuming risk because, you know, I have a full understanding of their process. So I can then assume that risk. But if it is a transactional approach, like supplying a product and then walking back, then obviously it's a different scenario. But what I'm seeing is more of a partnership and a collaboration approach than as a supplier.
Okay, thank you. I should just mention a conversation that Angela, hi Angela, we've been having on a couple of fronts. One is about what, I'm not going to talk for you, Angela, but just set this up, is about the whole issue of attracting young people into manufacturing. And I simultaneously, I wrote a piece a few weeks ago about manufacturing ambassadors, manufacturers acting as ambassadors for our sector when it comes to making themselves more visible in local communities. And how do we encourage collectives of manufacturers? There are some very good ones around the country in places like Plymouth and so on. I know that they do exist. Roy would no doubt defend the one in the Solent area. Manufacturing ambassador sits on my website as just as an idea, trying to get some people to throw some mud at it to see if it sticks, pardon the phrase. And I've now registered manufacturing ambassadors as a separate website. And I've been talking with Angela about maybe trying to combine a lot of these initiatives under one roof. And the reason this is relevant is that collectives, the encouragement of collective manufacturing collectives at a local level or regional level can also encourage collaboration on best practice. Because if they're talking to each other on one thing, why don't they talk to each other on another thing? I'm trying to sort of maybe encourage the growth of cooperation, collaboration. Angela, would you like to pick up from there? Because we've got another conversation happening next week around the issue of attracting young people and education skills and everything else.
Oh yeah, so this was following on from the online event, and after that it made me realise that around the country we only have 3 manufacturing festivals, Plymouth, Leeds and Bradford Manufacturing Week, and you know, I mean, you know, I've been banging on about making us more visible and attractive to young people, and I sort of thought, well, we need more manufacturing festivals around the country. We need more manufacturers to come together and work together, and then go out and showcase what they're actually doing in their towns and cities. But to actually do that, if you think about it, for somebody to start that role in, say, in Birmingham, for example, where I am, you'd sort of think, well, where do I even start? So I sort of came up with this idea that I threw out at a few people, including Nick, thinking they'll send me an email back saying, "Are you mad, woman?" But luckily they didn't. So my idea was to actually set up a manufacturing festival forum. So we bring together the people who've already been doing the festivals the last few years and extract all that knowledge from them and actually build up a knowledge base so that other areas of the country who want to do a manufacturing festival, instead of starting from scratch, they can actually start from what our guys have already learned, what they've already done. And so with Nick, we were talking about even moving it on even further from that, you know, not just necessarily about the festival, but actually, you know, this collaboration, as Nick says, and the ambassador idea, which I think is a great idea.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, I haven't got the bandwidth to manage anything, but I think it's encouraging people to share best practice, what works, what doesn't work, and then maybe find a way, somebody who can sort of knock it into shape and make it shareable. Shareable ideas. And as Angela said, it can be about festivals. It can be about how to influence your local MP, how to get to know them, how to work with your local council, how to work with your local schools. You know, what tricks of the trade have people learned, and what can they share? And then, as I say, why can't we collaborate on other things as well? But it is a question of how you pull people together in the first place. And I suspect that there's a lot of inertia in manufacturing, as we know. It always seems to be the same companies I always see making a lot of very positive noise, but there's vast thousands of companies out there who are just getting on with their day job and not really bothered about you know, talking about any grand ideas like we have. So I don't know. I'm trying not to be pessimistic, but it is an issue. It's 17 minutes to the witching hour. Who else has got a resolution for the new year? Ram.
So talking about the young people thing, Nick, Angela, this might interest you as well. I was involved in an event across the pond in America called Advanced Manufacturing Virtual Internship, which basically brought together a collection of manufacturing industry people who basically made presentations to students from a high school on various topics from design, development, sustainability, quality, supply chain, logistics, digital, yada, yada, yada. And then all the students basically made a presentation on a project that they'd chosen to work on. And that was apparently quite a big success. And they're doing it again in January, and I've signed up for it once again. Now, if this is something of interest, maybe if it's got legs, I'm happy to make the introductions and get some input from how they've done it in America. And maybe there's something we can implement here back home, if that's
really
something of interest.
Because, yeah, in America, they actually have a manufacturing day each year. and the whole day is just totally across the whole of America is devoted to manufacturing. And I know that's something that Graham is quite interested in doing in this country, but he just felt as one man he wouldn't be able to get the ball rolling enough and get enough impetus behind him to actually make that happen, you know.
And I'll also try to rope in some people from my IMAKE committees as well. They'll be more than happy to come on board and, you know, present. I can raise it at the next IMAKE committee meeting when we sit down next time.
If I can I interject just to talk about a company I did some work with last week called Infor. They call themselves Infor. It's IN 4.0, and they have they do something quite remarkable. They have digitalization consultants in their company. They are a digital transformation services company based up in Salford Keys, but they also have a talent academy. And so what they do is they get STEM graduates who are looking for work, particularly now. So they've had a bumper year, as you can imagine. They get STEM graduates. They put them through a 12-week course in their talent academy to get them ready to go in as to help manufacturers who need somebody on site to help them during their digitalization journey, but can't necessarily afford to hire somebody full time. And so these students go in, and many of them stay on and get full-time jobs. But it's a way of bridging the divide between academia and manufacturing, and it's proving hugely successful. The guy who runs it is called Mo Isap. And I'm going to get him to come on next year to talk about it, because I think, you know, it's proving, it's bringing young, very, very digitally skilled young people into manufacturing, preventing them from being siphoned off by gaming and fintech and all that, and bringing them into manufacturing. And of course, the manufacturers themselves are making out like bandits. They love it. So that's a model to look at as well. Okay, any more resolutions for 2021? Adam?
For me, I think it starts with the alignment of some of the organisations in institutions. So we started off with talking around John Mills and the Institute of Prosperity, who has Vince Cable on there. But then we know, because Nick's just said, that we have Vince is doing a talk simultaneously to Peter Mandelson on his strategy. So it's how you've got Vince Cable in one hand here in the Institute of Prosperity, but there's also in this hand here has also got his own strategy as well that he's delivering out. So where is the alignment? And I would love to see the alignment across some of these organizations with one body that is driving it all the time and has aligned all the others underneath it around manufacturing and UK manufacturing. For me, I
mean, I think that's Make UK's job, but they have a very particular view of their own role, and it is not to be an umbrella. And I absolutely share your thought. When I spoke to Caroline Flint about this, I said, there are so many voices out there. Why, just by adding one more, do you think you're going to achieve any degree of success? She's the chair of the board of advisors for this Institute for Prosperity. And she said, well, I don't have any expertise to shout about when it comes to manufacturing, but I know politics and I know how to, I know how that works. And so it's persuasive, but I'm not certain, you know, I'm not certain quite how persuaded I am by that. It'd be very interesting to see whether it goes anywhere.
Yeah,
but I agree with you totally, Adam. Sorry?
Yeah, each one of them has their own vested interest, don't they? And it just they need to like pull it together.
They also have membership, and now from their membership, they're earning good cash. So they've actually gone from being, something with a very direct intention to something that has, members and revenues and properties, and they're just businesses. And I think so many lose sight of what they're trying to do. Anybody here member of organizations that they feel are not necessarily in pure alignment with their intention? Look at that, smiling faces, but nobody's owning up. Come on. Okay, Ram, I'm a key.
I've left them this year.
Who? I'm a key.
No, I won't say them. But I've left.
Oh, I see. You have left your.
Yeah, I've left organisations that don't align with what we're looking for from a business perspective, and as a collective around manufacturing and that side. So we've come at them. They've gone.
Yeah. Anybody else here? I mean, hands up. Who is member of a professional organisation? I won't ask you to pass judgment. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can't quite see. Six or seven. Yeah. Okay.
Institution. So, I'm a key.
Yeah. Sorry, who said I'm a key? Was that you, Ram? Yeah, you're with I'm a key. Okay, I'll put you on the spot. Do you think I'm a key does a good job when it comes to some of the issues we've been discussing?
Wow. Okay. I might end up losing a few friends and also my membership, but hey, I'm a key does a decent job, at least in the Northwestern committees that I'm part of. We predominantly do a lot of technical lectures. We do a bit of mentoring and the interview prep and all that. And what we do in the Northwest around Greater Manchester, the Lancashire area and Cumbria seem to be fantastic. We're great with diversity. We're great with emphasis on what the needs of the industry are and bringing in that kind of material. And that's my limited experience of being in the Northwestern region. And I'm not quite sure how the IMECI functions outside my little bubble of the Northwest of England. But at least as far as what I've seen, because I'm on 2 committees here in the power industries and the Greater Manchester one, and we've done some phenomenal lectures. I'm sorry, I'm kind of blowing my own trumpet here, but we've done some fantastic lectures, like the one you were there the other time, weren't you, Nick, with the patents and IPs for innovators and things like that. And we've done things on nuclear energy and the future of manufacturing and all that. So yeah, the Northwest, we're doing fantastic, but I'm not aware of how the rest of the IMECI is doing things.
That's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Well, I won't put anybody else on the spot, but I just think it's. I think Adam makes a terrific point that there's an awful lot of wheel spinning goes on, and the voice of industry. It doesn't feel like it's being reflected or channeled properly. As Steve Murphy's just noted that. Is it? How do you say it? Steve, do they call it MITI or MITI in Japan? Can you describe what they do?
MITI.
MITI.
Yeah.
What do they do? Are they like
international trade and industry? Yeah.
Right.
And they did a lot of analysis and a lot of focus on, particularly after the Second World War, collecting of information on what other countries did well, and finding the niche. That little gap where the Japanese could put a lot of effort over a particular amount of time. And I think they also did things like provided long-term loans. But they really were a focus for how do we make Japan the best manufacturing organization in the world. And that was their brief, and that's what they went about doing. I'm trying to think of some other things I know, but basically my understanding was that they did focus particular companies in particular areas. Like, I mean, Honda was told that his job was going to be small motorcycles, which he did make small motors, and he told them to sod off. I'm going to make cars as well. So they weren't sort of all dominating, but they did provide a direction, finance, and a lot of cross-fertilization. Trying to remember this bit, but it's a bit like if a company came up with an area it wanted to work in, it was passed around all the other companies who could possibly work there, and they commented on it, so that whatever the solution they got at the end was bought in almost by the whole of Japanese industry.
I like the sound of that, but I mean it's.
But it's it's Japanese. I mean, it's to as much as anything, it's a product of their culture. Their ability to behave collectively is very, very unique. You can't copy that. You have to sort of build it into your own culture. But their ability to behave collectively and say, you know, we will do this as a whole country is very, very effective.
It doesn't really, I don't think it's something that we're very good at. In fact, you know, the individualistic approach to life that we have in the UK means effectively sod off. I don't want anybody else telling me what you know, even if it's in my best interest. I think things are changing in manufacturing, oddly enough. I think we're gaining a lot more in terms of collaboration. I think there's much greater understanding around that. I hope there is, but I do wish we could get that message out further and wider. Angela.
Yeah, Nick, I was going to say, one of the things I've started doing this week is actually making a list of all the different organisations that I'm starting to come across within manufacturing. So, you know, we know about MADE and MADE, and, you know, I came across one at the end of last week, Manufacturing Growth Programme, which I've not heard of before. But the only reason I came across it is because some PR company has just won the account for 2 years to do all the marketing for SME manufacturers. And my immediate response when I read it was, well, good luck with that then. Because as we know, manufacturers aren't really open to being marketed.
Yeah, quite.
Was that Graham Sleep?
Sorry?
Was that Graham Sleep, Angela?
I can't remember who posted it. No, it was somebody from Cucumber PR posted it.
That's Russ Coburn, yeah. The Manufacturing Growth Programme gets its money, or did, from the ERDF, European Regional Development Fund. And they are a pay-for-play advisory organisation, and they work with SMEs, yeah. But it's like I say, that their function is to help businesses, but they have their own business interests, and it's how you balance that out, and whether their business interests ever get into conflict with their intention.
Yeah, Nick, one of the things I did was looked at some analysis a little while back on MGP. They did a survey, I think, around some of the SME base, and what I noticed was the SME base was asking for this. What they actually got sold was this. So it was very, very intriguing, and I thought, well, how's that happening there? Where's the disjoint in it as well? And again, I don't know whether it sort of like comes down and splinters down to the consultants that are dealing with the businesses and from that side, because, you know, as independent consultants, you go to MGP and you can get the money. So it just didn't seem to align again very well. But again, it's as you say.
Any thoughts? We got oh heavens above. I'll be right back. Talk among yourselves.
Just a quick point for me, because I haven't said anything, and I'd like to just chip in. But for me, if we want manufacture to be more central, more reckoned with, we need to be positive, speak about it, and blow our trumpet. You know, I really like what Mark Weymouth's doing with you, Mark, with the Fridays, Good News Fridays. You know, there's lots of stuff we need to work on, but what we definitely need to be doing is shouting about where it's going well, where there's cool stuff happening, and just own it. You know, we're all part of that. We as a personality types, we are obviously more introverted, so we just need to push out of our comfort zones and be people facing and be positive. That's what attracts good attention.
Okay, well, listen, it's 1 minute to 7.
Oh,
I thought we had to have.
We do have to
have Santa on the call. I just want to wish you all, as far as you possibly can, to have a really wonderful holiday, wonderful Christmas, wonderful New Year. God knows it's been the weirdest year of my life, I think, and I think it goes probably for everybody else. So here's to 2021 being an awful lot better. So I'm going to say thank you, everybody, for being part of Kaizen Central. It's been one of the best things for me about starting this this new incarnation of my professional life. I really do enjoy our gatherings, and I do thank you very much indeed for being part of them. So on that, as Julian would say, on that bombshell, I shall say good night, have a happy Christmas, and see you next year.
Good night.
And to you, Nick. Happy Christmas.